7 spine-chilling footage, caught on ring cameras, sinister secrets exposed from the haunted night. In the heart of Maplewood, Nebraska, darkness wrapped itself around the quiet suburban houses like a shroud. Sarah, a devoted single mother, was used to the sounds of her children settling into bed. But that night, an unsettling chill crept into their home, echoed by her 10-year-old son, Ethan, who fidgeted nervously. "Mom, I saw shadows and heard whispers outside. I swear." His eyes wide, filled with panic, a shiver rolled down Sarah's spine. Shadows? Whispers? Her heart raced. Driven by a mix of concern and curiosity, she turned to the ring camera footage to illuminate the mystery. As the familiar sounds of their neighborhood, neighbors arriving home and squirrels rustling in the leaves, played, she felt a sense of comfort wash over her, until she caught a glimpse of something that twisted her stomach. A shadowy figure gliding into view from the direction of the vacant lot, an unsettling area locals whispered about, echoing tales of crime, neglect, and darkness. Sarah instantly rewound the footage, heart pounding. There was Mr. Thompson, her neighbor, loitering at strange hours. The elderly man's hunched shoulders and strange gestures now read like something sinister. Was he talking into thin air? The comforting smile she'd often waved at him now felt like a mask hiding something grotesque beneath. Days passed, each moment a new horror. The mundane gave way to the inexplicable. Her coffee mug vanished, only to resurface in the refrigerator. The children screamed in their sleep, haunted by nightmares that left their small bodies trembling. Feeling increasingly isolated, Sarah shared her fears with neighbors, only to be met with dismissive laughter. "You're imagining things, Sarah," one said, a chuckle escaping their lips. The festive veneer of Maplewood began to peel away, leaving the chilling truths blurred beneath the surface. Then a pounding heart went into overdrive as Sarah overheard Lily, her young daughter, talking about Mr. Thompson with too much familiarity, her innocent trust wrapping around the man like a noose. "He's so nice, Mom. He told me stories." Sarah's pulse quickened. She felt like a puppet, strings tangled in dread, not just for her children, but for herself. The folklore of Maplewood whispered in her mind, tales of monsters cloaked in everyday disguises. The real predator might not be lurking outside, but hidden in plain sight. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the haunting nights dragged on, uncertainty turned corners like a predator. Just as Sarah summoned the courage to confront Mr. Thompson, her breath caught in her throat. Ethan's terrified scream shattered the quiet. "Mom! I see him! I see Mr. Thompson! He's calling me!" Rushing into Ethan's room, Sarah was met by an eerie silence. The wind whispered through the open window, curtains dancing as if welcoming a dark guest. Panic surged through her veins. The ring camera became her last hope. The haunting footage rewound again, revealing horrifying clarity. The shadow wasn't alone. A sickening realization gnawed at her. Her children appeared on screen, smiling sweetly in the moonlight with Mr. Thompson, their innocence transforming into a grotesque reminder of treachery lurking behind the familiar facade of suburban comfort. The stakes had been raised, and as Sarah's world began to unravel, the once safe haven twisted into a nightmare. Who could she trust when the shadows danced with their own twisted secrets? The air in Maplewood crackled with a tension that left Sarah on edge. Days turned into sleepless nights as the shadows crept deeper, becoming less like figments of fear and more like looming, tangible threats. The laughter of her children, once a comforting melody, now echoed with an unsettling undertone. Ethan's bright eyes dimmed, his spirit dimming with every passing moment as he became more withdrawn, his playful nature fading into an anxious shell. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shapes that twisted unnaturally. Sarah felt the weight of the night pressing against her, darkness clawing at the corners of her sanity. She hadn't dared step foot outside after the recent horrifying discoveries, not sure what could be lurking beneath the cloak of night. Each time the wind screeched through the trees, she half expected to hear Mr. Thompson's faint, raspy voice drifting towards her, beckoning from the shadows. Then, as Sarah knelt on the living room carpet with her phone in hand, trembling fingers replaying the unbearable scenes on the ring footage, she caught sight of something new, something she hadn't noticed before. Underneath the wisdom of a devoted neighbor's gaze, she saw a flicker of something primal, empty eyes that masked a chilling hunger. A distortion of reality filtered through a sanctified smile. Her heart pounded like a drum. Desperate to unravel the truth, she grabbed her coat, breathing heavily, as if the very air around her was thickening into a malevolent fog. Gathering courage, she stepped outside, the chill of the night biting at her skin. Shadows clung to her as she made her way to Mr. Thompson's house, every grating sound amplifying the fear that had been mounting inside her. When she reached his front porch, the porch light flickered ominously, casting her shadow across the walkway. The smell of damp earth mixed with the faint scent of something sweet, nauseatingly pleasant. She hesitated. Could she confront the man she had once seen as harmless, even kind? Then she heard it. A low murmur that danced across the air, slipping through the cracks of reality. "Come play, come listen." The voice was soft, coaxing. Sarah's skin prickled. Ethan's scream replays in her mind like a broken record. "Mr. Thompson?" she called, voice shaky but urgent. "Are you there?" Silence fell like a lead weight. She stepped closer, hand trembling as she knocked on the door. 3 solid raps echoed into the night, deadening the unnerving sounds around her. The door creaked open slowly, revealing the old man's figure framed against the darkness within. His smile stretched wider than humanly possible, eyes glinting with a predatory gleam. "Sarah," he crooned, tilting his head. "You're just in time for the stories." A cold wave of icy dread washed over her, paralyzing her with the realization that the innocence she thought she could protect had already been compromised. Ethan and Lily were lost deeper into the creeping, shadowy world. As the world around her dimmed, voices echoed from behind her, a soft chorus of innocent laughter mixed with the haunting whispers that had invaded her home. Focusing her eyes, she saw them, her children, standing behind her, their faces illuminated by the moonlight, eyes vacant but smiles eerily bright. "Mom, come join us," they chimed, extending their tiny hands toward the beckoning shadows of Mr. Thompson's abode. Sarah's breath caught. Heart racing, she felt a new panic, the depth of her despair solidified by the sight of her children being pulled into a malevolent game. Fear surged in her chest. "Stay back!" she screamed, horror raging like a storm within her. But the darkness had already begun to claw at her, pulling her into its embrace. With each step, the ground felt unsteady, as if reality itself was slipping into an abyss. Now, facing the embodiment of evil, she realized she had to choose, confront this hellish nightmare or watch her children vanish forever. And as the darkness deepened, Sarah's resolve hardened, fists clenched with determination, ready to reclaim her children's safety, whatever the cost. What awaited her in that door was a terrifying truth she needed to unveil. Would she dare step inside? The moment stretched into eternity as Sarah stood at the threshold, heart pounding against her chest like a frantic bird desperate to escape. The laughter of her children, once a source of joy, echoed ominously around her, each giggle a jagged edge slicing through her gut. "Mom, come join us!" Their wide smiles were unsettling, too wide, too unnatural. They looked like them, yet felt profoundly different. She fought the urge to turn and flee, but curiously, her feet remained rooted in place. "Ethan, Lily." Her voice trembled, cracking under the weight of fear. "What are you doing?" "We're playing a game," Ethan exclaimed, the innocence in his voice laced with something darker. "Mr. Thompson says you'll love it." Her instincts screamed to run. Shadows shifted behind her, curling and twisting, reaching out with icy fingers that threatened to wrap around her throat. "Get away from him!" she shouted, desperately hoping her children would break free of whatever spell had ensnared them. "Don't be scared, Mommy," Lily chimed, her tone cheerfully menacing. "Mr. Thompson has the best stories. You have to listen. They'll make everything better." But something deep inside Sarah resisted the call. The door to Mr. Thompson's home hung ajar, a gaping maw inviting her in. She could feel a magnetic pull, a sickening urge that clawed at her heart. If she entered, what would she sacrifice? A chilling gust of wind swept by, raising the tiny hairs on her arms. It carried a whisper, a promise wrapped in malice. "Everything can be yours. Stay, right there." It was the loudest and strangest command she'd ever uttered, but her children hesitated, the brightness in their eyes flickering for just a moment. She saw doubt, an unsettling flicker that made her heart swell with hope. "Mommy, please," they echoed back, but this time there was longing mingled with fear. "Step back," she ordered again. They flinched, but didn't dare move. Mr. Thompson leaned more towards the light, the shadows behind him shifting like coiling snakes. His body exuded an unsettling calm as he swayed slightly, mocking her resolve. "Just a step inside. It won't hurt much." Every instinct screamed no, but the floor beneath her felt alive, thumping violently as if the ground itself was pleading for her to join. The darkness around them thickened, and she painted a wall of courage in her mind, blocking out the intrusive whispers. "Did you know?" Mr. Thompson spoke again, voice dripping with deceptive sweetness. "Stories can trap souls. Just a quick listen, and you can help your children find their place forever." A scream lodged in her throat. The children's desperate smiles twisted into grins that no longer belonged to them, but before she could react, they took a step forward. Panic spiraled. She lunged, arms outstretching, the primal urge to protect fueling her. "No!" Her scream tore through the air as she leapt between her children and the terrifying embrace of Mr. Thompson. The shadows surged around her like tidal waves, engulfing her as she fought to hold them back. But the darkness sank deep into her skin, whispering promises only a parent could feel. Suddenly, everything went black. When the darkness receded, she found herself in a room she didn't recognize, cold and sterile. The air was thick with despair, and she was alone. The echo of her children's laughter reverberated, louder now, yet out of reach. Panic clawed at her heart as she realized she was in a strange dimension, and the shadows twisted once more, but now they felt different, more sinister. "Mommy!" came the distant cry, but it was joined by something chilling. A chorus of laughter filled the void. Too many children. The walls pulsated, and as she turned, faces emerged, twisted with glee and terror. She was not in a story anymore. She was trapped in a nightmare. "What have you done?" A familiar voice echoed deep and mocking, as though the very darkness spoke back. "Let them go," she pleaded, desperation washing over her like cold sweat. She could feel the looming presence tightening around her throat, strangling her with dread. Then the echo beyond the walls returned, blending with Mr. Thompson's raspy voice. "Once you enter, you never return." And with that, an evil laughter erupted, sending shockwaves through her soul. Her heart pounded intensely. She had unearthed the truth, but now she had to face the consequences. A shadow flickered in the corner of her eye, dark and foreboding, moving closer. What awaited her there? Could she still save her children? Or had she sealed their fate and her own? Sarah's breath quickened. The cold air wrapped around her like a vice, squeezing the light from her vision until only the laughter echoed, an unsettling symphony. She turned, heart racing as she faced the walls that pulsed, bearing the ghastly faces of children entwined in mirthful sorrow. What had happened to Ethan and Lily? Would she ever see them again? A creeping dread snaked through her as the laughter grew louder. It bounced off the sterile walls, a haunting melody that clawed at her mind. The voices intertwined, mingling with the grotesque faces, creating a hideous chorus that promised despair. "Mommy, come and play." The disembodied whispers were fervent, a chilling call to join them in whatever twisted game awaited. Each voice felt like a dagger, piercing her resolve, beckoning her closer to the dark heart of the shadowy realm. "Stay back!" she shouted, attempting to instill fear into the abyss. The walls writhed, distorting as if mocking her will. The shadows, creeping ever closer, radiated a cold fear, a sentient force intent on dragging her into the depths of the darkness. "Mommy!" The familiar voice cut through the chaos like a knife, slicing through despair. Ethan. But it was twisted, echoing in ways that splintered her heart. "Help us!" She closed her eyes and focused. Somewhere, beyond those haunting walls, her children's pleas lingered. But was it them? Or a trap set by Mr. Thompson and his malevolent shadows? It was tricky, like walking through a fog that hid dangers at every turn. "Stop it!" she screamed to the shadows, desperation clawing at her throat. Memories of bedtime stories, happy moments and laughter danced through her mind. "You can't have them. They are mine." The laughter faltered, replaced by a deep silence that swallowed the air. Sarah opened her eyes, her heart pounding. It felt as if time had stopped. The faces receded into darkness, their significance fading momentarily, yet she knew it was just a brief pause. A trick. She had to act fast. Suddenly, shadows gusted around her, darkness swirling like a tornado. She closed her eyes, and in that moment of chaos, a thought flickered. The stories. Mr. Thompson had said they could trap souls. Maybe they could also save them. Sarah grasped onto the fragments of forgotten tales, the ancient truths hidden in their simplicity. "You want a story?" she shouted, her voice gaining strength. "Here's one. Once upon a time, there was a brave mother who fought against the darkest of fears to save her children." She felt a shift, the shadows drawn into her words. They whispered back, taunting her, but she pressed on, weaving the fabric of her story with vibrant color and light. She traveled through valleys of darkness, yet her heart illuminated the path forward, guiding her to her children, to freedom. As she spoke, colors began to emerge from the void, swirling like auroras. The laughter transformed, faltering then fading into hesitation. Sensing an opening, she poured every ounce of love and hope into those words. She knew she had to reach them, had to fight harder. "Mommy!" The voice trembled, fear mingling with longing. "I'm coming!" she cried, her determination igniting a fire within her. The world shifted again, dark faces anguished and writhing. The laughter now turned to wails as her story unfurled like a banner against the gales of sorrow. "Come to me!" she called, desperately searching the faces around her. In her heart, wisdom from her own childhood echoed back at her, the value of family, of love, and the power of stories. There was power in belief, she realized. The very essence of hope manifested in words had the potential to banish the darkness. But just as the shadows began to recede, she felt a powerful grip around her wrist, cold and suffocating. A figure stepped out from the swirling darkness, the familiar figure of Mr. Thompson, but this time his smile was gone, the joy on his face replaced by a wrathful glare. "Foolish woman," he hissed. "You think stories can save you? The more you speak, the deeper you sink." The shadows began to surge again, whipping frantically around her. Suddenly, everything was quiet except for a single chilling voice whispering, "You know you can't win." And as panic surged within her, the room began to spin. Would she be lost in this nightmarish tale forever, or was there still a chance to save her children and herself from the curse of Mr. Thompson? With her heart racing, she knew she had a choice to make. Should she continue to fight or submit to the darkness? What awaited her in the shadows? As the spinning continued, she was left with a question that echoed through the void. Would darkness claim her soul, or could the power of her words become a lifeline in this desperate moment? The grip on her wrist tightened, an icy feeling that spread through her, clutching her heart in its merciless hold. Mr. Thompson leaned closer, the darkness swirling around him like an ominous cloud, obscuring the light. "You're trapped, Sarah," he whispered, as if savouring her fear. "Your words are but fleeting echoes here." Fear clawed at her throat, choking back her voice. Yet amidst her terror, she felt a flicker of defiance. This was not the end. "You underestimate the power of love," she screamed back. The shadows shrank at her words, momentarily faltering. "Love?" McThompson laughed, a terrible sound, jarring and hollow. "Love is but a legend in this realm, a feeble concept." The shadows hissed and snapped like hungry beasts, eager for their prey. Sarah focused, drawing strength from within, hoping to channel the vitality of every moment she'd shared with Ethan and Lily. She could feel her spirit clash against the grip of darkness, and the shadows recoiled, hissing as if they had been burned. "Once upon a time," she started again, her voice now steadier, "a mighty mother wove tales of courage, where shadows cowered in the light of her heart." The energy around her shifted, as if the very fabric of the void became restless with her words. The faces of children, once twisted in malice, began to soften. Hope flickered within their ghastly features. "Remember," Sarah continued, her heart pounding, "every tale has a hero. Come forth, children, let's banish this darkness together." They materialized, drifted from the shadows, echoes of her children's innocence mixed with whispers of other lost souls. "Mommy, we believe," they chimed, their voices melding with hers, creating a chorus against the darkness. Yet Mr. Thompson twisted deeper into the shadows, his expression morphing into rage. "You dare challenge me? You will pay dearly." His voice elongated, reverberating terrifyingly around them as he unleashed the full power of his wrath. "Fight with me!" Sarah roared to the children, her pulse quickening. "Our love is stronger than this evil." As if her words were a signal, the vibrant colors of their collective hope surged forward, ripping through the dark like a fiery comet, hurtling toward Thompson. But he unleashed a wave of shadows, a dark tide that threatened to engulf them. The gravity of the moment pulled at her, despair clawed at her edges, whispering that hope was an illusion. "Mommy, help!" Ethan's voice broke through the chaos, cutting deep. She turned, seeing a flicker of his face amid the maelstrom of shadows. His innocent plea sparked a fierce resolve inside her. "No, not today!" she screamed, a primal instinct lifting her as her words became a weapon. With each syllable, she felt her strength multiplying. "This is not your story, Thompson. This is ours." The building light pulsed and throbbed, shattering the suffocating grip of darkness. With one last surge of power, their voices combined into a single powerful crescendo, a blaring anthem of love and unity that filled the void, illuminating every crevice of despair. In that moment, Sarah saw the darkest corner of their realm burst open, light flooding through. Shadows recoiled, screeching in terror as they dissolved into wisps of smoke, helpless against the force of love. But just as hope illuminated the darkness, A piercing shriek erupted. The jagged edges of Mr. Thompson's visage twisted in agony, and in frantic desperation he shouted, "You may conquer me, but the darkness will never leave you. You will carry it with you, always." The space around Sarah began to warp, blurring at the edges, threatening to pull her and her children apart. She felt a ripping sensation, as if the world was trying to tear her from her reality. "Mommy!" Both Ethan and Lily reached for her, their faces stricken with fear. "No, I won't let go," Sarah shouted, desperation coursing through her veins. The light dimmed, and shadows began to close in again, hungry once more. Would it swallow her and her children whole? Could she hold on to them against this consuming force? As the darkness surged, threatening to drown them, an icy dread chilled her spine. Would they be separated, cast into different realms of despair? The shadows roared back, and in that moment, frozen in time, Sarah closed her eyes, gripping onto her children, bracing for the fall. Was there a way through the darkness, or was this just the beginning of their story? What awaited them as the shadows twisted and swirled around them? Would resilience bring them safety, or doom them into silence forever? The darkness closed in around them like a suffocating blanket, pulling at Sarah's limbs, trying to pry her away from her children. Ethan's grip tightened on her hand, his small fingers trembling as if sensing the deadly threat encroaching. Lily, with wide eyes full of terror, clutched her brother's arm and pressed against their mother's leg. The trio formed a fragile barrier against the oncoming storm. "Don't look away!" Sarah shouted, her voice painfully strained over the clamor of the dark. She wouldn't let them go. She couldn't. The shadows writhed, a living entity, hungry for despair. Faces flickered within them, twisted, contorted shapes that merged and shifted, screeching out forgotten horrors. Sarah instinctively drew her children closer, anchoring herself in the reality of their warmth. Their closeness ignited something deep within her, not just the fierce love of a mother, but a raw, primal need to survive. "Stay with me," she urged, her tone fierce as the shadows crashed against their barrier. With each wave, the memories of laughter and shared moments with her children surged forward, pushing back the suffocating void. Then she felt it, a sudden, sharp pain in her wrist. Mr. Thompson's icy grip had returned, reeling her toward the abyss. "You cannot escape it," he hissed, his voice a serpent's whisper that danced around her heart. "The darkness has claimed you. It will never relent." "Stop!" she cried, forcing every ounce of love she had into her voice. "We're stronger than you think." Her words collided with the oppressive darkness, sending a ripple of light that shimmered around them. But the shadows pulsed back, furious and unyielding. "You think your love can save you? It will wither in the end, just like hope." His laughter echoed, grating against her senses. In that dreadful moment, as despair threatened to curl around her heart like a vice, Sarah made eye contact with her children. Their eyes, wide and glistening with tears, reminded her of who she was fighting for. "Together!" she shouted, and they joined voices, threading their fear into a chorus of resilience. "Together! Together!" The shadows paused momentarily, their inky tendrils curling back as if confused. Sarah locked her eyes on the swirling darkness, a blaze igniting in her chest. She wouldn't give up, not now, not ever. Riding the swell of their combined cries, Sarah reached deep within herself, channeling every ounce of fear and fury into a single thought. "We belong together. We are one." Waves of warmth surged from her heart, radiating outward in an iridescent burst that pierced through the encroaching black. "Leave us be!" Her voice rang out sharp and clear, sharp enough to slice through the air. It resonated like a bell, scattering the shades that loomed like phantoms. Yet just as the aura of light threatened to swallow the darkness, Sarah heard it. A faint, deadly whisper beneath the cacophony. "Shadows bind themselves to truth." It dropped like ice into her veins. and your truth will be revealed." Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet quivered, sending vibrations up their legs. Trembling through their bodies, the light flickered uncertainly, and cracks began to form in the fabric of their corridor, a swirling cascade of spectral colors pulsing violently, revealing otherworldly images dancing at the edges, unraveling like a faded dream. "What's happening?" Ethan cried, fear creeping back into his voice as the protective barrier began to thrum violently. "Hold on!" was all she could think, all she could say, bracing for what might come next. The shadows, now flickering and furious, lashed out at her with renewed vigor, clawing at the edges of their sanctuary. Would the truth, hidden in the shadows, unleash something unspeakable? Did the light truly have the power to conquer, or had she awakened something darker, waiting for a host? As the walls trembled, Sarah wrapped her arms tighter around her children. Fear raced through her heart, but it wouldn't overwhelm her. She couldn't let it. With eerie certainty she whispered, "No matter what comes, we face it together." And just then, they were pulled into a maelstrom, a vortex of light and dark, merging truths and lies. Where would they land? Which side would greet them on the other side of this chaotic storm? Time held its breath as they flew into the unknown. What truths lay waiting for them in the depths of that swirling darkness? Blinding light flashed around them, followed by an oppressive silence that felt thicker than the dark. Sarah could barely register the sensation before they were unceremoniously deposited onto a splintered floor, the echo of their bodies hitting the wooden planks, spilling into the surrounding air. Gasping for breath, Sarah blinked, trying to focus. As her vision cleared, the world around them unraveled. They found themselves in a vast, dilapidated space, a cavernous basement that smelled of damp earth and decay. Flickers of red light danced at the edges, casting eerie shadows that moved and twisted as if alive. "Where are we?" Ethan whimpered, clenching Lily closer, who was on the verge of tears. "It's okay," Sarah said too softly, her heart racing. "We're together. We can figure this out." But a dread crept into her voice. What awaited them here? The shadows that receded had morphed into something else, something more sinister. She could feel it tightening around them again. The walls of this forsaken place were lined with mirrors, all cracked and smeared, as if touched by something unspeakable. In each shard, she glimpsed fleeting images of their lives. Birthdays, sunny afternoons, and laughter that now seemed unbearably distant. Then, a sudden twist. They began morphing into darker scenes. Sounds of cries and whispers crawled through the room, echoing thoughts of despair long buried. "Look!" Lily pointed. Sarah's stomach twisted. A mirror at the far end reflected their current selves, but it wasn't just them. A figure loomed behind them, shrouded in darkness, its form flickering in and out of existence, merging with the shadows. "Run!" she shouted, but the words felt like a distant echo, lost before they could reach anyone. Ignoring her instincts to flee, she yelled, "Don't move!" Gripping her children's hands tighter, she stepped backward, drawing them close. The thing in the mirror shifted closer, its smile growing wider and teeth glinting as if made of shadows themselves. "Your truth awaits you, Sarah," it whispered in a voice that was both her own and a cacophony of others, her mother, a long-dead friend, lost relatives. "Your past holds the key." "What does that mean?" Sarah's heart pounded, each beat screaming for answers that dark wouldn't reveal, yet amid the rising terror, something sparked within her, a memory clawing its way through the fog, a question she couldn't shake from her mind. The truth. The memories should unite them, shouldn't they? "I won't let you take us!" With a ferocity she didn't know she had, she found herself pushing against the darkness, thrusting the memories of love and connection forward. Suddenly the ground lurched. The basement groaned in protest, as if responding to her plea. The figure shrieked, distorted laughter reverberating around them, shaking the very walls. In its chaos, pieces of the mirrors shattered, splintering the dark spell. Through the shards, visions blurred, but a deeper truth emerged, a flame of hope flickering stronger than the shadows that conspired against them. "Stay strong," Sarah screamed, pulling her children closer as more empty frames around them cracked and splintered like the flickering light trying to pierce the gloom. The creature writhed, faced with Sarah's defiance. "You cannot escape who you are. Your deepest fears will unfurl." The walls were collapsing, fracturing reality itself. "Mom!" Ethan cried, his voice laced with pure terror. "I don't want to forget us." "Never!" Sarah shouted back, just as the fabric of the basement twisted violently. They were thrown backward, rolling into an abyss of dark and bright, life and lack. The echoes of their laughter clashed with screams. Shapes twisted in and out, clawing for them, pulling at their very souls. Where were they headed? Could the truth somehow save them, or would it seal their fate within the dark? Just as they disappeared from the collapsing space, a whisper surged through the chaos, chilling Sarah to the bone. "Face what you truly are." And then, nothing. Sarah gasped, her lungs burning as she struggled to fill them with air. The chaos quieted with a suffocating stillness, leaving her disoriented. She blinked hard, hoping to dispel the lingering darkness that clung to her vision like a wet cloth. "Mom, are we still—" Ethan's voice trembled, echoing in the oppressive silence. It took a moment for her to realize they were still alive, still holding on to each other. But how? Where were they? A dim light flooded the space, casting ghostly silhouettes against the decaying walls. The scent of mildew clung to the air, thick and stale. Slowly, Sarah turned. They were no longer in the basement of those broken mirrors. Instead, they stood inside a cavernous hallway, endless doors flanking either side. Each wooden door was worn, their discolored paint peeling away like the memories of forgotten lives. "Stay close," Sarah instructed, squeezing her children's hands tightly. Every instinct screamed to run, but fear rooted her to the spot. What might lie beyond those doors? What had they escaped from, only to find themselves in this new nightmare? Lily whimpered, "Mom, I don't like this place." "I know, sweetheart. Just keep hold of my hand." They stepped forward. The air grew colder with each creaking step. Shadows wavered near the edges of her vision, dangling like a threat just out of reach. And then, from the furthest end of the corridor, a soft whisper bloomed into an eerie wail. "Sarah!" Her breath caught in her throat. The voice was unmistakable, yet twisted. A mournful echo of her mother's tone, distorted and longing. "Mom?" she stuttered, darting her eyes across the hallway, searching for the source. "Mommy!" Ethan cried out, visibly shaking. "It's okay! We can face it together!" Sarah said, though doubt gnawed at her guts. With hesitant resolve, she pushed onward, approaching the nearest door, a heavy, dark wood that seemed to hum with a rhythm of despair. "What if we just—" Ethan started, but she silenced him with a glance. "No, we need to understand what's happening. We can't let fear control us." She gripped the knob, its surface cold and unwelcoming. For a moment she hesitated. Could the truth behind this door hold answers, or deeper horrors? With a quick glance back at her children, she turned the knob sharply. The door creaked open, revealing a small room illuminated by a faint flickering bulb. As they stepped over the threshold, a cold rush swept through them, as if the very air mourned their entry. The room was filled with photographs, hundreds upon hundreds of images, each showing fragmented moments of her life. The laughter of birthday parties, the tears of loss, the faces of loved ones she had long forgotten. They blinked at her, deformed by time and sorrow, like echoes of herself. "Mom!" Lily gasped, pointing toward a faded photograph in the corner, a gathering of a family she scarcely recognized, her mother smiling wide, vibrant. But behind that smile loomed a shadow, a shapeless figure looming over them, dark and threatening. "Get back!" Sarah shouted, instinctively pulling her children closer, shielding their eyes. But it was too late. The dark figure from the shadows materialized, stealing the warmth from the memory. "I've been waiting," it hissed, its voice like dry leaves scraping over splintered wood. "Stop!" Sarah screamed, desperation clawing at her throat. "Leave us alone!" But the figure lunged, reaching for her. Just then, everything grew silent once again. An intense cold rushed over them, paralyzing her in place. She felt her heart pounding, caught in this anguish, still holding her children tightly. "Whatever you are, whatever you want, we won't let you take us," she cried, a surge of strength coursing through her. "Face what you truly are," it hissed. And in that moment, Sarah felt every truth she'd hidden spill out to confront her. With a sudden understanding dawning, her thoughts became frantic. What had she buried? What darkness had she allowed to fester in her heart? Images swirled around her, and time seemed to slow. Her family, her past, her choices, everything seemed poised to unravel. "Stay with me," she shouted, but the figure's laughter echoed through the air, a terrible promise that echoed endlessly. "Your truths shall surface, and they will swallow you whole." The room began to blur, colors bleeding together like thick ink. "Mom, I can't see," Ethan cried, panic lacing his voice. "Hold on." As the darkness tightened around them, Sarah braced herself, trying to steel her heart for what was coming, but the figure whispered one last chilling promise before everything spiraled into nothingness. "You cannot escape what you were meant to become." And then the blackness returned. Where were they heading now? What further horrors awaited them, hidden in the shadows? Would they emerge from this nightmare, or would the shadows hold them captive forever? The stillness was overpowering. Then, one by one, flickering lights began to illuminate their surroundings, casting ominous shadows that skittered along the cracked walls. Sarah blinked, fighting against the disorientation. Where were they? It felt like time had collapsed, weaving together fragments of her past, present, and something far more sinister. Ethan's grip tightened around her hand. "Mom, what happened?" His voice quivered, but she sensed his smaller body trembling against her now. "Stay close," she whispered again, her heart racing. They didn't have a choice. Forward was the only option. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know, honey. Just don't let go." The close feel of their warmth reassured her, but doubt filled her abdomen with dread. As they stepped cautiously into the next corridor, the whispers grew louder, disjointed, pleading. Voices echoed from all around, weaving together an unsettling chorus. "Sarah, help us. Don't leave us." She froze. A chill washed over her. Had she heard that voice before? The memory flared, flickering like the lights above. A door creaked open suddenly on their right, the sound slicing through the air. Time felt suspended as shadows peeled away from the entrance, inviting yet foreboding. Sarah's instincts screamed for her to turn back, but curiosity bound her feet to the ground. "Should we look in, Mum?" Ethan's eyes mirrored the fear etched on her own face. "We have to see," she forced out, though each word became heavier than the last. They edged toward the door. As they approached, an inexplicable warmth radiated from the space beyond, in stark contrast to the chilling air surrounding them. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door wide open. Inside, the room was vibrant, filled with laughter and soft music playing. It was a stark reminder of cherished memories. Children danced, balloons floated carelessly, and a table overflowed with cake and gifts. "Mom," Lily gasped, pointing gleefully. "It's like a party." It struck Sarah like a bolt of lightning, a birthday party from years ago. She recognized the faces, the old friends she hadn't seen in so long, her mother among them, laughing joyously. But then the laughter twisted. It warped into desperate cries. The vibrant colors dimmed as shadows lurched toward her from every corner, stretching fingers of darkness across the room. "Sarah!" Her mother's face contorted in horror, trapped in that joyful bubble, her eyes pleading silently for help. "Mom!" Sarah shouted, but the shadows began to swallow the scene whole. "Get out! Run!" her mother's voice echoed, fading into panic. The warmth turned to ice as realities intertwined, a grotesque display of joy tainted by despair. A force pulled Sarah, yanking her backward, dragging Ethan and Lily with her. "No, we can't leave. We have to help them." But the shadows encroached, smothering the vision like a predator closing in on its prey. "Mom!" Ethan pleaded, terror rising in his voice. Spurred by adrenaline, Sarah stumbled back into the corridor, forcing the door shut. She pressed her back against its surface, breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers intensified, growing frantic, clawing at her mind. "You can't escape!" "No!" Sarah yelled into the void, fear clenching her chest. "We will not succumb!" Suddenly, her surroundings flickered again. The corridor spiraled, blurring into a different reality. A voice, powerful and deep, echoed from somewhere beyond time and space. "Face your truth, and know despair." The ground beneath her trembled, cracking like ice under autumn's weight. Rooms popped into existence, doors swinging open to show glimpses of her life, ghostly images of decisions, sacrifices, moments she wished she could erase. "Mom! What's happening?" Ethan squeaked, gripping her arm tightly. "Stay with me, please." She felt more desperate now, aware the darkness was closing in. Just as quickly as the chaos began, everything stopped. "Where are we?" Lily whispered, her face pale, innocent in the face of darkness. Then it came, a low growl pervading the air, wrapping around them like a death shroud. Shadows stretched out, pooling at their feet, morphing into shapes that twitched and writhed. "Sarah," the deep voice resonated, "you sealed your fate long ago. Can you bear the burden of your truths?" The air crackled and Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her throat. What truths? What did they mean? Each question consumed her, burning against her resolve. As the shadows coiled closer, an icy grip surrounded her, and for the first time she felt despair clawing at her insides, threatening to unravel her completely. "Mom!" Ethan's scream pierced the darkness, cutting through her thoughts. And then everything exploded into blinding light. What awaited them now? Would they be consumed by their truths, or could they reclaim their fate from the darkest corners of their own history? Sarah inhaled sharply as the brilliance of light enveloped them, pushing the shadows back like a rising tide. She blinked, disoriented, and when her vision settled, the scene before her transformed, revealing a sunlit park, familiar and warm, yet somehow still charged with an unsettling energy. "Mom, are we free?" Ethan's voice trembled, uncertainty coloring his words. She looked around, the air thick with unspoken tension. I think so." But deep down, she felt the remnants of darkness lurking on the periphery, whispering old fears into her ears. As they stood there, the laughter of children echoed brightly, filling the space like sunshine breaking through clouds. It seemed peaceful, yet shadows danced just outside the sunlight's reach. "Stay close," she whispered again. The little fingers of her children interlocked tightly with hers, seeking refuge. Step by step, they approached a picnic table set up beneath a sprawling oak tree, draped in sunlight. Bright balloons bobbed gently in the breeze, casting playful shadows on the ground. "Is this a party?" Lily breathed, eyes wide with wonder, but Sarah noticed something. In the shadows flickering around the park, a figure loomed at the edge, a shade that felt all too familiar. Her heart quickened. Mr. Thompson had infiltrated this serene place, lurking just out of sight, waiting for an opportunity to pounce. "I need you both to remember," Sarah said firmly, heart racing. "This is not a game. We must confront the darkness. We can't run." "Mummy, I'm scared," Ethan whispered, tiny hands trembling as he glanced toward the shade shifting beneath the trees. "I am too," she admitted, her voice steady but laced with fear. But we are stronger together. We can face the truth, whatever it is. As they gathered their courage, the shadows began to swirl, revealing the grotesque features of Mr. Thompson, eyes glinting with a malicious hunger, a mocking smile spreading across his face. "You think you've escaped?" he taunted, voice echoing from all directions. "Your truths lie here, waiting to be embraced." "No!" Sarah shouted. "We are not your prey. We define our own truths." With every ounce of strength, she pulled her children close. "Remember your love. Remember what we've shared." As she spoke, vibrant memories flickered like the light around them. Celebrations, family dinners, laughter in the living room, stories before bed. The park shivered. Sarah felt the pull of those memories as if they were a shield forming around them. The warmth swelled in her chest, illuminating the darkness that clawed at the edges of their world. "No matter how deep the shadows go," she cried, "we will shine brighter." The ghostly visage of Mr. Thompson writhed, its own hunger thwarted by the growing light fueled by Sarah's love. "You think you can defeat me?" it hissed, striking out. "They're not your stories to own," Sarah replied, her voice rising above the chaos, unwavering. Together with her children, they began to retreat into their joyous memories, leaving no room for the shadows that sought to bind them. Each heartfelt moment painted bold colors that glimmered against the grasping darkness, illuminating the park even more brightly. "Mommy, look!" Ethan gasped, pointing toward the sky above, where rays of sunlight shattered like glass, creating a spectrum of brilliant colors that clashed against the shadows. "We can do it! We can push him away!" "Yes, together!" Sarah encouraged. "Hold on tight!" With every shared heartbeat, they pressed forward through memories of hope and unity, creating a light so bright that even the deepest shadows seemed to shrink away. The echoes of Mr. Thompson's voice grew fainter, losing its power against the beautiful tapestry of love they wove together. "Face the truth," he cried one last time, before the brilliance enveloped him, extinguishing his presence in a flash. As silence descended, the park returned to its peaceful state, sunlight flooding the space as a soft, warm breeze whispered through the branches. Sarah and her children stood in awe, feeling the weight of the dark lift. "Are we safe now?" Lily asked, glancing around, searching for remnants of fear. "Yes," Sarah replied, feeling light-hearted for the first time in what felt like an eternity. "We've reclaimed our story." "Can we go home?" Ethan asked, eyes shimmering with hope. "Yes, my love. Home, where laughter lives." As they turned toward the sun-kissed path leading out of the park, Sarah felt a rush of relief and hope wash over her. The road would still have its challenges. They couldn't forget the darkness they'd faced, but she was ready to embrace the future. Holding her children close, Sarah felt stronger than ever. Love fortified her heart. They would walk through whatever lay ahead, hand in hand, together. The sun dipped lower in the sky as they made their way home, the warmth filling their souls as an unbreakable bond forged through struggle and hope illuminated their path forward. As the shadows receded into memory, Sarah knew the light would always be stronger, pushing even the darkest fears away. And then there was silence. Now, friends, this is your moment. If you loved this story and want more spine-tingling, heart-pounding content, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to give us the power to reach other thrill-seekers out there. Flood the comment section with your reactions and wild theories about tonight's ending. What did you think? Let's hear it. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. You know who they are. Let's spread the excitement together.